How many times have you heard an old ghost story or an old urban legend? I've definitely heard a lot of tall tales throughout my days. Actually, when I went to Mosley, our high school, our DTV program used to tell an urban legend every week on the TV. So I've definitely heard my share of tall tales and local urban legends and even not local urban legends throughout my days. Actually, one of my best remembered urban legends is the one that my uncle told me whenever he lived in San Antonio, Texas. It was about a school bus full of kids that was hit by a train one day. And back in the 1940s, a school bus full of kids was making its way down the road, and the school bus actually stalled on the tracks, and then the train hit the bus and it killed the remaining 10 children that was on the bus, and it killed the bus driver. Since that dreadful accident many years ago, any car that stopped near the railroad tracks would be pushed by unseen hands across the tracks to safety. It is the spirits of the children, they say, who push the cars across the tracks to prevent another accident and saving people from a tragic fate like their own. As the story goes, if you park your car on the tracks and shift it into neutral, the ghost of the children will push it uphill, out of the way of an oncoming train. And if you cover your bumper with baby powder or flour, you can actually see the children's fingerprints on the bumper from where they, push it over the train tracks. However, there are no records of any such accident ever happening or occurring in the newspaper archives anywhere in Texas, and the road is on a slight incline, which could explain the cars moving by themselves. The story that my uncle told me about the accident was a story about a late evening in 1984 when a woman was driving home one night. The woman was taking her usual route, which is not too far from the tracks in the neighborhood, and noticed something that caught her attention. It was actually a little girl who was standing on the side of the road alone. The woman stopped and asked the girl if she was alright and if she needed a ride, and the girl just stood there with no response. And then she walked up to the car and just got in. She gave the driver her name, which was Cindy Sue, and she pointed to where she lived. During the ride home, the girl was extremely quiet, which made the woman that was driving her actually really nervous. While they were driving, they crossed over a set of railroad tracks, and the girl just stared at the railroad crossing signs. But shortly after that, they arrived at the girl's house where she told her that she lived, and the girl wouldn't get out of the car whenever they got there. So the woman just got out of the car, just assuming that maybe they had some family problems, and she just didn't want to go to the door. And she walked up to the front door, and when the mother of the girl arrived at the front door, she told her, she said, "Hey, I got your daughter, Cindy Sue, in the car." And the woman just started yelling and demanded that she left her property immediately. She told her to leave, and before she called the police, just let her daughter rest in peace. So the driver just turned around and walked back to her car, kind of in frustration. And when she got to her car, she noticed there was no one in the car. She had remembered the girl fastening her seatbelt, locking the door, but the door was still locked and the seatbelt was still fastened. There was just nobody in the car. On the woman's drive back to her house, after she left the house, she just kind of didn't really know what to do. She noticed that some of the street signs had the names of some of the children who actually died in the accident. And behind Discovery is just a tragic tale of innocent children and their remaining spirits. People have actually gone to the site and put their cars in neutral, turned on the ignition. The cars, supernaturally get pushed over the tracks. And then I said that the people put the powder on the bumpers of their car, and it looks like fingerprints. And then, so the question is asked is if it could be gravity that's causing the car to go over the tracks, since it is kind of like on a slight incline, but the cars actually move uphill. Since the tragedy in the 1940s, there hasn't been a single accident on the tracks because every car stalled on the tracks always seems to make it across the tracks. People say if you go back to the tracks today, you can actually still hear the children's laughter.